Hi, this is Brad Linder with Liliputing, and this is the Toshiba Chromebook 2, which is a thin and light laptop, weighs about 3 pounds, measures about 0.8 inches thick, and sells for $250 to $330. This is the $330 version, which Toshiba loaned me to review. Has a 1920 by 1080 pixel 13-inch display and 4 gigs of RAM. The cheaper model has a 1366 by 768 pixel display and 2 gigs of RAM. Both have 16 gigs of solid-state storage, and both have Intel Celeron N284 Bay Trail low-power processors. As you probably guessed by the name, the Toshiba Chromebook 2 is the second generation Chromebook from Toshiba. Last year's model has a similar looking case, but weighs a little bit more at about 3.3 pounds, and has an Intel Celeron Haswell processor. The new version is fanless, a little bit lighter, and honestly a little bit less fast because of the processor, but for the most part you're probably not going to notice that. And again, with this high-resolution display, it's one of the few Chromebooks that actually has a higher than 1366 by 768 pixel screen. Before we get to that, let's take a quick look at the sides here. We've got a USB 2.0 port, SD card slot, and power jack. On the other side, we've got a USB 3.0 port, so 2 USB ports, one is 3.0, one's 2.0, headset jack, HDMI, and a lock port. And that's about it. On the bottom, you don't really see much. There's a couple of screws here holding everything together, but there's no fans, there's no vents. It runs pretty much silently because of that low power processor. On the device on here, you can see that we've got a island or chiclet style keyboard, black keys, Chrome specific buttons for back and forward and refresh and so forth, and a nice large touchpad that supports multi-touch gestures, including 2-finger swipes. Now, this high-resolution screen, like I said, is really sort of what makes this guy special, and you have a lot more room on the screen for content at its default resolution settings. So something that would take up sort of a normal screen entirely has a lot of white space around the sides, but that actually comes in handy if you wanted to do multiple windows. So, for instance, you could snap 2 windows side by side and watch a video in one. Volume slider here, brightness, and surf the web in the other. We can go ahead and open up an article here, and if the text looks a little bit too small, which is sort of one of the risks of having a high-resolution screen here, you can always zoom in using Control plus and Control minus. Or if you really wanted to, you could go into the settings. Oops, that's not the settings. If you could go into the settings, go to your display settings and adjust the resolution. So right now it's at 1920 by 1080, but we could change it to 1536 by 864, and that makes everything a little bit bigger, but still allows you to fit more on the screen than you would if you were using a device with the lower resolution display. So as you can see, video does work pretty well here. I've tried Netflix, I've tried YouTube. High definition video playback isn't really a problem. And in terms of overall performance, like I said, it's not quite as fast as the model with the Celeron Haswell processor or a Core i3 Haswell, but for day-to-day tasks, it's pretty decent. It's got 802.11ac Wi-Fi, so it loads websites quickly. And overall, it's a pretty robust experience. Now, it does run Chrome OS. It doesn't have a lot of local storage, so if you wanted to watch movies, listen to music, you're probably going to want to stream those things from the internet. You can do some things offline. There are offline apps in the Google Play Store, or in the Google Chrome Web App Store, which allow you to, I don't know why that's, oh, here we go, Web Store, which allow you to do offline activities. So for instance, you can download Gmail and respond to mail when you're on an airplane or in some other place where you don't have access to the internet. There's a growing number of these offline apps, but for the most part, this is a sort of device that's designed for people who are going to spend most of their time connected to the internet. Now that said, there is another option, because this is a Chromebook that runs a sort of Linux-based kernel. You can open up a terminal window and install Ubuntu. Now, in order to do that, you need to enter developer mode and make a couple of changes. You can find details on how to do that at liliputing.com. But when you do that, you do open up the ability to install all sorts of other applications. So you can see I've got a web browser here, but this isn't Chrome. We're using a Chromebook, but this is the Firefox web browser. Likewise, you can open up a terminal, and let's say I wanted a word processor. I just type sudo apt-get install AbiWord, and then my password. It's going to go ahead and download and install that application, and while I'm doing that, I'll just sort of show that we've got all sorts of other things on here as well. Still processing. So all sorts of multitasking works. Okay, so that should be installed, so we're just going to go ahead and type AbiWord. And there it is. We've got a word processor. No internet connection required. So it's a relatively versatile machine that can run Windows. I mean, not Windows. It can run Linux. It can run Chrome OS. It can't easily run Windows. And we can switch back and forth. Now I'm using a script called Crouton to run Linux that allows both the Ubuntu and the Chrome OS software to use the same underlying kernel, so there's no real configuration required to get Ubuntu to work. It just uses the display and wireless and other drivers that are already powering Chrome OS. If you really wanted to, you could wipe Chrome OS off this and install something else entirely. But if you were going to do that, I'm not sure that a Chromebook would necessarily be your best option. So again, you can find more details at Liliputing.com, but that high-resolution screen allows you to fit more content on the screen at once. The Bay Trail processor offers reasonably long battery life, 6 to 7 hours in my tests, and that's with the screen brightness set to about half and wireless turned on. Toshiba promises up to 9 hours of battery life, which seems a little bit ambitious to me, and even more battery life if you get the version that has a lower resolution screen. So, you know, if you really want the longest battery life, I would recommend something else. Asus has a Chromebook. The C200 and the C300 series Chromebooks have similar processors, lower resolution displays, but up to around 12 hours of battery life. That said, 6 to 7 hours really is pretty decent. It gives you enough time to get almost a full day's worth of work in. And I think that Chromebooks, you can use them for work. They're sort of picking up in business and education environments. But I think for personal use, they make the most sense if you're buying one for use as something like a second or third laptop. So you don't necessarily need to have all of your applications and everything, all of your music and movies and other media stored on this device. It's something that you can just sort of take and use around the house or at a coffee shop or other areas where you might not want to have all of your data with you. Because it downloads updates automatically and in the background, because it has a sandboxing system to keep you from installing malware, it stays up to date and relatively safe. And because your data is stored online, you can access it whether you're using the Chromebook or you can go into a web browser and access most of your data on other applications. When you buy something like the Toshiba Chromebook 2, you also get a fairly large amount of Google Cloud Drive storage, so you can upload files, you know, photos, picture, music, anything else that you'd like into your cloud drive and access it across all of your different devices, whether they're running Chrome OS or a different operating system. So not necessarily the operating system for everybody, but definitely for somebody. I've been using a lot of Chromebooks over the last couple of years, and they are handy little devices for web surfing and running some apps and games and watching videos and so forth. And this is one of the few that has a high-resolution screen, and it's a good high-resolution screen with decent viewing angles, and as you can see, it's a little bit glossy, shows a little bit of glare, but it also gets pretty bright. The speakers, I should also mention, Toshiba says the audio is fine-tuned by Skull Candy. I'm not entirely sure what the fine-tuning means, but these are some of the loudest laptop speakers I've ever heard. They're not necessarily the best sounding. There's not a lot of bass, there's not a lot of mid-range. It's very sort of tinny, trebly audio, but they are quite loud. Plug in some headphones or a Bluetooth speaker and you'll get better audio quality. But if you just want audio volume, this device has it. Anyways, that is an overview of the Toshiba Chromebook 2 with the high-resolution display and the Intel Bay Trail processor. You can find more details at Liliputing.com. This is Brad Linder.